Tuesday, November 17th,
6 o'clock.
2015. Lisa, would you call the roll?
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Batty?
Here.
Mr. Failmetzger?
Here.
Mr. Jessic? Mr. Gary Johnson?
Here.
Mr. LaSalle?
Here.
Mr. McEnroe?
Here.
Mr. Steve Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of October 20th, 2015. Does anybody have any changes, additions to those minutes, corrections? Okay, I'll take a approval.
I move the minutes be approved as written.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. The agenda analysis, does anybody have anything in the agenda they want to change or move? Okay, we're okay there. Citizen comments, it looks like the storm is keeping our fans away tonight. So.
I thought
So
it was
far.
because we resolved all the traffic transportation issues in town. Uh-oh, don't speak too soon.
There's no traffic on the road.
Nobody's out there to look at it.
Too many trees are blocking.
Okay, item 5, new business discussion items, the TAC vacancies, interview process discussion. John, do you want to go through that?
I think Lisa and I are both going to go through this, but here comes Denise. Maybe we ought to. Do you want to wait and take on a citizen comment if she's got citizen comments?
Sure.
I don't know what they say about mad dogs and Englishmen.
Well, you're
They do
neither.
go out in the noonday sun.
Well, we already passed by the citizen comments.
Well, I decided not to walk. I was afraid I was going to drown.
No, well, we were just starting the next item, so if you'd like to come up and talk.
I can wait. Give me 2 seconds to dry off.
Oh,
Okay, so let's cover the first item then. So we have 3 vacancies on the coming up, two of which Henry and
Mr. McEnroth have both reapplied.
And Steve.
Or Henry and Mahoney,
And-
sorry.
and Bob, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Have both their terms have come up, and so we need to go through. There's one more position, right? There was
There is one more
Oh,
vacancy.
and Scott, Scott's also his term has come up. So
Retiring after 12 years.
after 12 years of service, so we know we've got 2 of our current committee members, Henry and Bob, that have reapplied. Scott's retiring after 12 years of service. So my hope is that we can get him to come back for the last meeting of the year and help us determine who can fill the vacancies that we would have. So I think it sounds like Lisa and Bob have already talked a little bit about this. So you guys want to go through it at all to make sure we're all square with how we want to deal with
Well, we
interviews?
will have to have a meeting in December, which we usually bypass December, but in this case, we'll have to do the interviews. And I believe we plan for 15 minutes apiece.
Yes, correct.
So Lisa will be notifying the candidates of the time that they will be interviewed, and then we'll have a very short agenda, probably 1 item or possibly 2.
Yeah, we have a presentation scheduled for December 15th.
Oh, okay.
From the Finance Department. Henry's request for transportation, where the revenue is coming from. Budget, yeah. So we have that scheduled, so we'll do the interviews at the same time. And we have 5 applicants that have applied for the vacancies.
Okay. And I don't think it'll probably won't take 15 minutes each, but that's what we want to give them so we can get their best responses to our questions.
So I was distracted for just a minute there. Same or similar, very similar questions, and you and Lisa have already approved those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I sent him the questions, and we revised them last year, and they seemed to work well. So I sent him the questions, and we decided to use the exact same questions this
Yeah.
year.
So
Okay.
that's about it.
So were we going to start that meeting at a different time?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Last year, we started at 6 o'clock with the interviews and then did the agenda items after the interviews. I don't know if you want to start earlier this year on the interviews so we can start the agenda items at 6 o'clock? Or,
Well, if everybody could make it at, say, 5:30, because we will be voting on the applicants that same night. And with as many applicants as we have, it may take more than one series of votes to get it down. The way I've seen it done before is each of us gives his first 2 or 3 choices, and then we get the majority from those, and then we vote again for the final person. Does that sound like a workable way to do it to everybody?
I actually have a conflict. I have a 5:15 meeting that night, so, but you'll have enough people there to handle it, so.
But 2 of us are may or may not be able to vote.
Would not be able to vote,
Yeah,
actually,
would
Henry.
not.
You're right about that. So, John, would that mean 6 o'clock is the earliest you could start?
Yeah, that would be touch and go, or you could do the meeting first and the interview second. That might work if I need to be here for the interviews.
We could ask the finance department to keep theirs to a specific time and get through that. And hopefully you won't have too many other questions, and then we could go through the interviews after that.
So you stretch to 6:30 before you start the interviews?
Well, I
Sure.
think everybody will have to be prepared to stay a little later than normally in that case, which is okay with me. I
Well, if you
just
start
don't-
the meeting early to do the other agenda items before you do the interviews, that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, but you said that 6:30 would be good for you?
Yeah, I can
to
make
start
that
the
work.
interviews.
I
You can make it work by 6:30. Okay, so we'll start interviews by 6:30 and figure out if we need to start any earlier than 6. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
Start at 6.
Right.
I mean, I don't see why finance can't get through our street budget in 30 minutes. That's
Especially
that,
if it's just about transportation.
yeah, it's not that complicated. So we'll do that. I guess we'll also need to work out with Renee. So Renee, I know you're back there listening and watching. So we need to, because we don't video the interviews. So we'll probably send him home early, right? Okay. All right. Thanks, Renee. All right. And Scott, are you willing to be here? Because the other piece to that is I do think it would be good for us to do something in the form of cake or
I can be here.
cupcakes, or you can be here. Something
If
like
there's food,
that.
I'll be here.
If there's food, you'll be here. Okay. All right. Sounds
Now-
like a plan.
Will Lisa be sending those of us that are voting the applications in advance?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, I can do that. And I'll send out a schedule of when the interviews are for you
Okay.
all to see as well. That's
Good.
what we did last year.
So we have 3 vacancies and 5 or 6?
We have 5 applicants and 3 vacancies.
Okay.
Okay, great, sounds like a plan. Okay, we'll go back to citizen comments. Are you ready now, Denise?
I'm dry enough. You don't have to do. I'm soaked, but
Join the club.
yeah.
Boy,
Join the club. Yeah. Anyway, Louise is going to join me. Denise McGriff, McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, and I want to say that I think we should get extra bonus points for coming out tonight, because I know what you guys faced when you got in here, but it's now even worse. And
Oh, my.
Henry, I think you're going to need some pontoons on your little Miata. I'm afraid it's going to float away in the parking lot.
I sincerely hope it stays put until I get out.
Yeah, well, as long as you've got oars in there. So it's time to get out the ark, is what I would say. Anyway, Louisa and I are here this evening to talk to you again. We want you to know that over the last year that McLaughlin Neighborhood Association residents have been here faithfully at just about every single one of your meetings. And our continued request is a simple one. We want the city to implement a traffic calming program, and we have asked to join with you in the development of that program, the planning of that program, and the implementation of that program. I understand that there are a few things in the works, and I would hope by now that you would have started rolling out at least small bites of it so we can get started and get this going. Some of you know, and mostly all of you know, that we have pointed out to you on several occasions the particular constraints that we have in the McLaughlin neighborhood. We are the center of all things, and we are the pass-through of all things. Anybody that comes from the hilltop has to either come down 12th, 15th, 7th, 5th, or South End, and all roads lead here. We don't have an issue so much with the fact that all roads lead here, but as you know, what we do have an issue with is how they get here, how fast they go through here. And in some cases, as our esteemed Public Works Director said, there is congestion. We understand that. But we also know that if people drove safer, our insurance rates would go down. We would have more livable neighborhoods. And that's really all we're trying to get at, is all the neighborhoods in the city are concerned about traffic, and they're concerned about speed. It doesn't do our community any good if we have people who literally, as I like to say, drive through here like bats out of hell. And I'm talking about all over town. I went to Canby on Sunday, and I like to go 99 and through Canby and that way, so I came the back way on South End. There was a truck following me the whole way, probably inches from my bumper, because I wanted to see how other people were driving. I was driving the speed limit, 35, you get to the school, then it's 40, and I kept 40 all the way till I got to 99E. As soon as he got to the point where he could pass me, the guy blew me out of the water. And I just said, well, that's fine, but I just like to do that. But the other thing we wanted to do tonight, if Louisa, you want to say anything?
No, I just agree with everything you said. And,
we have a special presentation for committee member McEnroth because he lives in our neighborhood. So I'll get up for a minute and then he can show you what we brought him. Sorry it's a little damp, but I did bring a plastic bag.
Oh, that's good.
I tried to keep it from getting wet.
Well, thank you. See what I got here.
We've started a little bit of something in our neighborhood. We got permission from the City of Vancouver's Transportation Planning Department to utilize their signing, but we adapted it as our own.
Two-sided.
So this is maybe something that we can work with you on getting more of these around the city to some of the other neighborhoods. It's going to cost some money, but one of our local sign companies already has the ability to make these. So we are awaiting your invitation and your program that we want to work with you, and I think we've proven as a neighborhood association that we can be good collaborators with other city departments and city committees. So that's all we have to say. And thank you, Henry, for accepting that.
Well, I have a place where it's pretty visible.
Yes, well, on 5th Avenue, we have 5th Street in Oregon City. We also have the same problem.
just hang on to it, because I had I bought 2 signs before these. I bought the 2 that said, "Drive like your kids live here."
You got the others here, too?
No,
Somebody
I just
took
had
them.
that.
Oh,
No,
somebody-
they got taken. I gave one to a neighbor, and then we had one in front of our house, and then around the corner, and both of them disappeared. So I have no idea why anybody would want to take them, but anyway, they're gone. So I'm hoping that these signs, I love this. This is my favorite one. We have 3 different types,
Yes.
but this is my
One
favorite.
of them says, "Check your speed," which one of my neighbors has agreed to put in his yard right adjacent to the speed control sign in where I live. And then we have another one that says, "What's your hurry?" But the city of Vancouver has several. Those are just the ones we chose. Again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. They have a fabulous program. There's all this stuff that we've told you about that's online that you can look at. I've got most of it in hard copy because I've read it. It's really a model, and we can adapt it however we like because they've been very generous and said that we could.
Again, I thank you for the sign. I do have a place for it.
I know that you do.
On private property.
Denise, question.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Have you
Mahoney.
given any consideration to vandalism? And because they look like it's a good idea, but it looks like a target to me. you know,
We're hoping that isn't going to be a target.
you know, theft.
Oh, right. Well, and I'll tell you,
We're going to electrify them. No.
I got one of our signs that says, "What's your hurry?" and I tied it to our picket fence, hoping that nobody will try to lift it off of the metal prongs. But I just hope that it stays.
Well, anytime you have signs up there, they're likely to be stolen. You know, it's just amazing the people, why they steal some people's signs, I don't know.
We had one at the corner of 8th and Washington that was on a stake. It was from the county. It's the black ones that they had put out. It was in the ground, I would have to say, up until about September. And I would go by every so often and pound it in a little heart, make sure it was in the ground. And it was there, and it was there, and it was there. And I came out one day to go, matter of fact, to come here, and it was gone.
It's hanging in some kid's bedroom.
Well, I hope it's in somebody's yard, because it says slow, I think it was a county sign that said slow down, or, anyway, they had given out some of these to some of the community members in Oregon City. And I still see some around, but yeah, that one disappeared.
Well, I've been known to take signs down myself. When I see a sign at the corner of Holcomb and Redland Road for somebody's garage sale, pounded into a live tree,
Yeah.
or pounded into our neighborhood association signage, that upsets me.
Well,
And
it's
so
not
this
according
one
to the
time,
sign
I
code
saw the
either,
sign
so-
up, and the guy he hadn't pounded it to the tree, although it looked like he had, but he chained it to the tree. So that was
Well, yeah, I'm not in favor of putting anything in a tree
no.
or pounding anything. Yeah, or it's technically illegal to put them on the PGE poles because it's dangerous for the workers. So we've told the people in our neighborhood that have them so far that they need to put them within their property, not in the public right-of-way, not in the parking strip, and definitely not on a telephone pole. So anyway, so thank you. So we are, hopefully will you have a response for us this evening about where you guys are going to go with this, the program?
No, not a true response this evening. We, like I said in my email, it's a very, very slow process, slower than I would like to see it. But our next thing that we're looking at is printed material, and Lisa is working on some information for that. That's the next thing I want to look at, is have some choices on that. I do like your term collaboration, though.
That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Lewis, do you have any ideas of when we might start rolling out parts of this? Because we're very excited. We're anxious to get started.
Well, I'm just going to, we do have an agenda item tonight to talk about the Drive Safe Oregon City program that we're kind of we've been working on.
What we're interested in.
Yeah. So, our intent was to have something in place in time for next school year, but that's not to say that certain deliverables couldn't happen before that. But the kind of the official kickoff was to try to have all our content and distribution of not signs like these necessarily, but similar products for the school year, and or possibly even the what's the Oregon City Police event that they have up at Eastham School. Yeah.
The policing fair, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. It's on the agenda, so I don't know if you want to jump to that or if you want to.
Don't mind. It's dry in here.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you both, ladies.
By the way, the city of Vancouver has their signs. They have so many that they've given out, and I believe one per. They have a form that you fill out, and there's one per household, and you can. I don't think they charge for them, but like I said, we're willing to share the template if the city decides to do something like that. And again, if there are any grants out there that we can apply for, even the neighborhood associations apply for them on behalf of the city to get funding because they're not cheap. The two-sided ones are not inexpensive, but I can talk to John about how much those cost, and obviously the more you print, the cheaper they are. And we just did an initial run of 30 just to try it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, John.
The next, excuse me, the next item is our Public Works report.
So there's really the Drive Safe Oregon City campaign that I wanted to talk about, and the letter of support we're requesting from the Transportation Advisory Committee for our State Transportation Improvement Project grant application. It's due on the 20th, so we're kind of under a pretty short timeline. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the state, or our application. I don't know if you can put the projector on to just show the committee where we're talking about. So the funds we're actually pursuing are not available until 2018 through 2021. So if you have any idea how slow the transportation funding process is, they just recently made decision on the project for 2015 through 18, and we didn't make the cut in that round. So we're pursuing funding for 2018 to 21. And we are competing with what's considered Region 1, which includes the metro areas of Washington County, Multnomah County, and Clackamas County. There's also even a little piece of Hood County in the Region 1 Act. And these funds that we're pursuing are, it appears based on the kind of questions that they're asking and what we've heard in the literature that they're looking for, is they're looking for things that are like not necessarily boulevard projects as much as multimodal. So they enhance things like transit, they enhance bikeways, they enhance walking, those kind of solutions. And they're not necessarily about adding more lanes or more capacity on our transportation system. They're about making places more comfortable for other modes of travel. So we have submitted this a similar version of what we're submitting on this time for Main Street. This will be our third attempt at trying to get grant funding for this segment of Main Street. If you remember, we got grant funding for blocks 5th through 10th. Those have been completed. This would be similar in the sense that there's some existing areas that are probably not in need of new sidewalks, but most of the corners need ADA ramps, and all of the corridor needs street lighting. The only real good place where there's street lighting that matches the rest of Main Street is at the transit center. We're also so the big pieces are things like pavement and restriping for it would still be on-street parking, so it's really just Sharrow's kind of a better depiction of where bicycles and vehicles need to share Main Street. But like I said, the ADA ramps, lots of sidewalk improvements, street lighting, LED street lighting, so that we've got safer corridor for citizen that's advantaged or disadvantaged can get through there. And we're also talking to TriMet. We're doing a little scoping that it's very initial on, but we plan to include in our proposal possibly a signalized location right at TriMet. And this committee in particular has talked about the concerns for crossing Main Street at the transit center. So right now there's one striped crosswalk that crosses Main Street, and it's on the Kentucky Fried Chicken corner, if you know that very well. Do I have a pointer? Can I use that pointer? Actually, can I use the mouse?
Sure.
See if that works. So it does work, but it's pretty light. I don't know if you can see it, but so this is the Kentucky Fried Chicken corner. It's a striped crosswalk, but typically there's a TriMet bus parked here, and there's sometimes a CAT bus parked here, and sometimes another TriMet bus parked here. So just getting across Main Street can be hazardous for pedestrians. So we're talking about including in our project either a bus-activated or a pedestrian-activated signal that would stop traffic on Main Street and allow those pedestrians or buses to cross at the appropriate time. So, and that would include a signal on this end too. So we're kind of looking at this whole piece as one intersection. right now we think we've actually got some pretty detailed plans. Wallace Engineering, when they did the phase 1, also included this stretch of Main Street, and we've kind of revised some of their original assumptions back in 2000. I think they were looking at it in 2010, and kind of updated it based on some changes that we know of. For instance, the county has a project at this parking lot that they're about to start on, so they'll be improving the sidewalks there. And we hope to see some kind of development approval in this corner as well. So those may not be part of our project, but they would be enhancements to the area as well that would match our project. So right now we're estimating this to be a $2.2 million project, and we are suggesting that the city provide the minimum amount that an agency can provide in terms of match on this particular grant is 10.27%. And we're suggesting something more like 32%. The idea would be we've got a lot of paving to do in this project as well, so we'd probably use our pavement maintenance utility fee. This street section is actually on our pavement maintenance list, so it would help to utilize those funds to help fulfill our match. Other things would be things like using transportation SDCs and other funds, utility funds possibly, street fund, depending on what we need. So trying to put together a match. The bottom line is we have a few years. If we get the grant, we'll have a few years to set aside some money so we can meet the match requirements. But we think adding a higher match might raise our potential for getting the grant. So the only other thing I wanted to mention about this is we've talked about in this committee the idea of a two-way couplet on 14th and 15th. I don't know if you remember that or not, but we were proposing one-way traffic on 14th off of McLaughlin Boulevard to help kind of move some of that traffic off McLaughlin, and then do another couplet on 15th. And we hired DKS and Wallace to look at that in real detail. That was one of the things that was included in the transportation system plan. And so it was a concept at that time. It had some unique ways of trying to maneuver bicycles through there. So I don't know if you all remember that plan, but it's been something that we've presented. And after having DKS do a much more detailed analysis, I think the main problem was trying to allow 2 lanes of traffic turn out onto 99E at 15th. That was the biggest problem with the plan. So there was some recommendations for things that we could do to make the intersection of 14th and Main a little safer. We'd also be implementing those in this project as well. So wouldn't be doing the couplet, but would be looking at whatever safety measures we could include at that particular location. The only other thing I will say is Oregon City is one of many competing. We got a quick look at what some of the other cities were thinking about in Clackamas County, and there's $11 million to go around out of this grant pot, and that's, like I said, a pretty big region. And in Clackamas County alone, the projects were exceeding $20 million. So it's going to be very competitive. We think our project has, especially with some enhancements at the transit center, have, based on the kinds of criteria that they're looking at, we think it's got a good chance, but we're not the evaluation committee. We're just the applicant. So they may think differently. So I wanted to let you know and give you an update on that. It would be another nice project to help with what's mostly turned out to be a pretty connected pedestrian zone between what's happened on the waterfront, what's happened in the rest of Main Street, our promenade, the alleyways that we've updated, and then when you think about the Riverwalk and the potential there, it would really help stitch a lot of that together and complete most of what we know is going to need to happen on Main Street. So with that, any other questions? I'd be happy to answer.
Would there be any possibility of rethinking the location of that crosswalk at the KFC location? Like I've said before, I think it's just an accident waiting to happen, because as you're approaching that parked bus there going south on Main Street, the crosswalk was located in front of the bus, so somebody could walk out from behind the front of that bus right into the path of your car, And also, it forces the pedestrian to be extra careful in that crosswalk when they're looking around the bus. If we could move it forward so that the crosswalk would be at the rear of the bus, it might help.
And are you talking before or after the project, Bob? Because we were proposing a signal there, so a signal would
Okay.
be, and how the configuration of the crosswalks could very much change in the project. In fact, we've talked a little bit about making that intersection. Nowadays, you're seeing diagonal crossing at some intersections as well. This may be a candidate for that because there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, especially with the county's new parking lot, and the county uses 11th Street. One other piece that I forgot to mention was there's a at-grade railroad crossing at 11th Street as well, and it's traditionally been there. There's not great signage there. There's not good channelization, so that's
Well,
another.
my preference would be to look at it sooner than later. And I don't know if this is possible, but let's say we spent the money to move the crosswalk to a safer location, and then we got the funding, would it be able to then back charge the cost of this crosswalk?
No,
If you got the grant.
that won't. They won't.
They won't let you do
You know,
that.
what you spend is what you spend, and if you spend money on the
Yeah.
project before you actually get the award, they don't. That's not something you can look back on. My recollection is we looked at other opportunities for crossing without signalization. So just moving the crosswalk, for instance.
Yeah.
There's bus parking. If you look at my pointer here, so there's buses that park pretty much this full length of sidewalk here. At times, CAT from Canby Area Transit Bus parks in front of this little island here.
Yeah, but both of those locations, if you could put the crosswalk at the rear of the bus, then that would
So
eliminate the danger of a person stepping out in front of, where you can't see them from your car until they're right there.
yeah. I think that's probably there's not any great location is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, right.
And we've got an ADA ramp there as well, and one here. I'm trying to remember. We've looked at this, and
Well, I got a personal interest in this because I had my youngest daughter get hit by a car because of a location like that.
yeah,
And, those little kids can get away from mama awful fast.
yeah.
So,
What type of signal? One of those yellow flashers or a red and a green light?
Well, that remains to be seen. But what TriMet would like to see is an actual red light that would be for vehicle traffic that would be more than just a warning.
Because I see the ones you have, the two you have here, people just don't know what they are. They just ride on through.
Yeah, yeah. That's surprising. Those things are everywhere now. So drivers that don't know what they are, that's surprising. But in this case, having a signal on a mast arm so that you would see it from, you put anything on the curb side, and if the bus is parked in the right place, you just won't see it. So it would be more of a signal pole with a mast arm with signalization on it, something that would stop traffic. So we'd like to incorporate that into our application, and that's coming together pretty quickly. We would like to get a letter of support from the Transportation Advisory Committee, and so Lisa's included a copy of that in the packet. I think, or we handed one out because there was a problem with the phone number there, and so we've corrected that. And I think if we could get, I guess, I don't know that we need a motion, but we need a signature.
I'd move we approve this and support it as the Transportation Advisory Committee as drafted.
As what?
As drafted.
Second.
been motioned and approved to approve the letter, the STIP letter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Now, all you need is my signature.
That's right.
Okay. If I can find it amongst all that stuff. I'll get it signed before. Oh, okay. Go ahead with the Drive Safe Oregon City campaign then, John.
So, throughout the numerous conversations we've had at the at these meetings to talk about, traffic calming in Oregon City. There have been some I want to say about 5 meetings that we've had, which Bob has attended. There have been some staff in those meetings as well. They're mostly made up of staff, and one of which is one of our police officers, Brian Willard. Okay. We're going to pull up some of the graphics. So Brian Willard is a police officer who does a variety of things for Oregon City Police Department, but he also has an interest in artwork and agreed to volunteer to kind of help us. So he created our logo, which is kind of at the bottom right corner of this, which is Drive Safe Oregon City. And we've used that on our webpage for some facts about Drive Safe, and we're now starting to plug resources into that website. It's been a while since I looked at it, Lisa, so you chime in if there's anything new there for us to kind of consider. But this was one of 3. I think there was a total of 6, but there was 3. Okay. So art ideas, and if you remember, we've been talking about not only just speeding, but distracted driving. Those are, for Oregon City Police, has kind of shared with us that our biggest problem is distracted driving. That's the most likely to create the kind of problem that you're talking about, Bob, and somebody getting hit. And then there's the speeding problem. So our intent was, I guess the other piece to this, so we've met and talked about these, and kind of we had some original drawings that he made up, or some original artwork that he made up, had some ink blotches on it that people thought were kind of distracting. They look like a printer defect, so he's cleaned that up a little bit, and then the intent was not to necessarily put these on sign boards, because we were a little bit concerned about our sign code and then just the idea of theft. But the idea was to use these on a format that would be a sticker that would be placed on the either the recycle bin, the garbage bin, or the yard debris bin, and they would be placed there by So we'd have several of these. Maybe we'd have all 3. Maybe they'd go to every household, or maybe not. Maybe we haven't figured that part of it out yet as to how we would distribute those. But those items would be available definitely for our major arterial streets, where you're going to see lots of through traffic, the kind of things that we've talked about in the McLaughlin neighborhood, which is 5th, 7th, Washington, High Street, Center Street, all those kinds of streets. Pretty much anywhere where it makes sense to place these, we would make them available. And we've talked to B&B Leasing, and they've actually also been interested in participating in a Drive Safe Oregon City campaign. And we haven't circled back with them, but when we did talk to them, we talked about kind of rotating. If you remember, before they were, now they're landscape, and what's the other version when they're upright?
Portrait.
There you go.
Now they're landscape.
So they didn't. The thought being that there's a pretty good viewport on the cans themselves that better fit the landscape design. So that was another change that was made. So this was a start. This was 3 pieces of kind of artwork that we thought made sense. They were short and sweet, and similar to what Vancouver has, they kind of send the driver a message. And the idea of putting them on the can, I guess someone could move their can out every day, but the thinking being they're a little bit more effective if they're not a regular thing that's there all the time. So having them out at least once a week sends that message. And I think depending on where you're at in Oregon City, I think there's 2, maybe 3 different garbage pickup days. So some neighborhoods may have them on a Monday and another one on a Friday. But and if you're really in love with the message and think they're effective, there's nothing stopping you from rolling that trash can or recycled debris bin out on a different day other than pickup day. And there's that was just our original intent, and we thought that was unique. We've seen other agencies that had Lisa did a lot of the research on what other agencies, which you've also seen in the past, different campaigns that have been out there. So it could be signage if we want to do some signage. I'm just a little leery of the signage because they do walk away. People do steal them, and then, or they put them in the right of way, and then we've got this sign ordinance kind of piece that I haven't really fully investigated to figure out whether or not we'd be compliant or not. But we could take it further and have messaging at other places. We've talked about placemats for restaurants and different things like that. So it's trying to get the word out. The big thing, and Bob, I guess I'll invite you to talk about this, was we didn't want this to be a staff-driven thing. We really kind of wanted more community input because the programs that are effective are those that aren't necessarily driven by the city staff, even though we can help kind of inspire that or help to get things printed and paid for and those kind of things. We can do those. We have some budget for this, in fact. So having a neighborhood that's pretty interested in sponsoring that means a lot, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to get folks to put them on their cans and follow the.
What about a citywide sort of open house right here, just inviting the public to come in and give some suggestions, like we had down there at the what is it, the museum up on the top? Is it the Tumwater Room? Is that?
Yeah.
That the open house, and we had the legacy. We introduced the legacy to an open house and public comment, things of that nature, round tables, things like that. I can see that if you invite the public to contribute, that you might get some people down here. And the other thing I was thinking about is what would be wrong with putting these kinds of messages on the side of TriMet, public service message, or on television, and also the merchants in Oregon City putting these things on receipts. And you go down to Michael's and buy whatever you buy down there,
Putting them on a receipt?
Yeah, just put them on a receipt. Drive safely in Oregon City. Thousands of
Print on the back of it.
Yeah, thousands of those things go out every day, and people from Oregon City and consumers from outside of Oregon City, and just don't be bashful about this message. And I like the idea about approaching the high schools and keeping this message. But the problem with it is you're going to have to keep this message before the public continually. And this is why I like the receipt idea. If you went down to Sherry's and a piece of pie and you got a receipt, drive safely in Oregon City, and did that 10,000 times a week, and just do it all the time, constantly, because people are constantly driving.
You mean like print up a book, Mark, and have the library hand it out from time to time?
Yeah, there you go. And see, that kind of suggestion could come from the public if you invited them down here and say, we need your ideas. Help us out. Just invite them. And they could participate in government, you see, and it'd be for a good cause. I think that's something that would be easily organized. You can have cooking and coffees out here, donuts. What do you think, Denise? Donuts or cookies?
I have to go for the cookies.
Well, B&B leasing is a great idea. You could have bigger signs for drop boxes, and maybe have a
That's
sign,
true.
it's reflective, because they'll have a drop box sitting out there at night. And if you drive up and it'd be a reflected,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
on the back end of it, and just kind of, oh, there it is,
What this officer's done, I think, is beyond the call. That's really, really
Yeah,
good.
I really want to put a shout out to Brian Willard,
Yeah.
because he actually just recently got transferred to Graveyard, and so he's and he's doing this on his own time.
Is that right?
Yeah, but I think I think these little slogans have probably maybe been used before, but I don't think in with all the graphics, that's all been things that he's put together, and I think it's creative and hasn't cost us anything yet so far. And so Bob, I think there's lots of options. What we agreed to was to focus on speeding and, at least initially, focus on speeding and distracted driving.
Right.
And then we wanted to be, we wanted to keep the program small enough so that it was successful. If there's a huge outcry for, the library board to do something or reach out to the businesses and get them to do something, I think that would be awesome. But I think it needs to be driven through, volunteers in our community. And I believe we've got the energy to do it. So it's, it's my community
Well, I think
too.
that some of our discussion has been in regard to reaching out to the neighborhood associations for their help, the PTAs, PTOs, the service clubs, all these organizations, and then next summer participating in the National Night Out and the Safety Fair, I think they call it, up at their Safeway's parking lot up there. Any of those public meetings.
Farmers market,
yeah, that's a great place to do it. But I would rather get this thing going sooner than next school year. I really would. I think that's I can't think of any reason why we couldn't. So, but I'm taking up
Good, look
your
at
staff's time and the meetings to get it together. I realize that. But that's my feelings. That's what I would like to see. So,
Well, could I comment on each of the three designs here we have? I like this one best. Safe driving is no accident, especially if you're going to paste it on the side of a recycling bin or something. It's something that the driver can comprehend while he's driving by. This one, eyes up, slow down. It doesn't do anything special for me, but if you put this up, the line should be spread out a little bit. It's kind of crowded on the sign. The hang up or pay up, I think, is the best information, but it's too much information for a driver to comprehend as he's driving by, trying to read it all. He crash into the car in front of him if the car stopped. So something, if you're going to go with placemats, I think something like this would work good.
I'm sorry, so the hang up or pay up was too much content, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's too much content for a driver just driving by and trying to read all that information.
especially if he's speeding down center.
I think they would be really good for a placemat, if you're going to go with placemats.
Denise, do you have some additional comments?
Just if I may, thank you, Denise McGriff again. So, Gary, I think that you're correct on that one because the people that are talking on their cell phones are already going slow. They're paying attention to the phone. They're not paying attention to the road, at least the ones I've seen. But I think the idea of putting them on our recycling containers will work to a certain degree. I don't know about you, but mine go in immediately. I don't like leaving them out on the street because I think it looks unsightly. So when we first moved to Oregon City, we had stickers on our recycling containers, and I would say after 10 years, mine started falling off. But that's because they were in and out in the weather. And my garbage cans don't go in. They stay out on the side of the house. So that may be problematic only because I would say if somebody's recycling and garbage containers are out all the time, that sends a message to me that maybe they aren't home, and we don't want to encourage somebody to go burgle their house. But that's in my neighborhood. But what about the idea of maybe having something that could be put on the city vehicles that could be taken off after a time? Because you won't again, your idea, you don't want people to get oversaturated and then not see it anymore. But maybe there's a way to affix something that's on the back so all the city vehicles have something on the back of them that says, safe driving is no accident or drive safe Oregon City. Maybe there's something we can get put on there because they're out and about all the time and people do pay attention if they see a vehicle. I think your idea on TriMet, they may charge us, and they don't come here all the time, so how would But that's a good idea, though. But what about school buses?
Yeah.
They're traversing around Oregon City. I like the idea of placemats. I think you need to look at having the message go home in packets that the schools send out. I mean, all the schools, public and private, because parents get stuff. Your idea of the bookmarks is a good idea. They could be everywhere. Some other things might be intermittently. I know we get to keep them up for a while, but a banner over Malala Avenue, where we have the place where we can put it. It stays up for a certain period of time, then comes down, and then when it rotates into the next cycle, put it up again just as a reminder, because I do notice when we had the farmers market ones up, people are kind of like, oh, farmers market, oh yeah, I need to go today. And you can see them sort of paying attention as they're coming through that. We don't have any signs that have the lighting in them, but other than if there's something that a street's going to be closed or whatever, but maybe when we have something like, 7th Street closed for blah, blah, the second message that comes around that says drive safe, and then 7th Street is closed, or, there's just lots of avenues. But I think your idea, Bob, and the committee is getting the message out. Matter of fact, I have an article that I think you wrote some time ago for the Trail News. It's probably been about 4 years ago, and it said something to do with speeds, and I kept that because it was very succinct and to the point. Whether people read it in the Trail News, I don't know, but I liked it, and I said, this is something I need to keep. Again, we as citizens can write letters to the editor, get it in the paper. I even think we can go as far as having something on the Willamette Falls TV, and we've got how many TV stations do we have around here that are local? We could maybe ask them to come in and feature that as a public interest item. That, oh gee, look at what Oregon City's doing. They're trying to promote safe driving, and they've got this great program called Drive Safe Oregon City, and wouldn't it be great to get, Tracy Berry or somebody out here to interview some of you guys and John and talk about that, so it gets it out on TV, because I know they're always looking for things. Also, we need to utilize our media. I know we have someone from the Oregon City News that actually lives in the neighborhood here in Oregon City that might be interested in doing a story. So I would say everything's on the table until you take it off the table in terms of getting the word out. And I would put it on my trash containers, but they would only be out on Wednesday night, which is my garbage night, and they would be coming in after that because, like I said, I don't like leaving them out. So, more ideas.
See, this is when I really start getting excited. Getting ideas from people like Denise and everybody else that can be involved is, it just goes back to the grassroots thing. It really does. Getting the people involved.
Yes, don't forget about going to CIC.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, Bob, so trying to meet both of those needs, yours to try to get something kicked off sooner, and then Robert's about having more citizen involvement. What if we did a pilot project with McLaughlin neighborhood and tried these, maybe just 2 of these stickers out? Because I think this one's effective if you don't have the top, if you're just looking at it like that. Slow down and just have these 2, and then because we have to figure out how to successfully distribute them. Is the waste removal company going to hand them out? Are you going to mail them? If you're going to stick onto a can, you don't want them folded up in anything. Are you just going to have a neighborhood meeting and have company all come and then hand them out there? So I think we need to attempt to figure out how to get them distributed. And, this is just one idea, see how it works.
See, my concern about garbage cans is, at first we thought, well, we could have B&B Leasing do it because they're very cooperative, but then we're using their labor to put them on the cans, and those guys don't get out of those trucks.
When we discussed with B&B Leasing that idea, they would rather have residents or have us do that. They would not want their staff having to take that time to do it. So, and that's when we started brainstorming on some ideas on who could start passing out these decals. And I know we had discussed Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, because then they'll be learning in Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts about slowing speeds. And so then we start, in the schools and the younger children. And then also, I think Elks was another idea.
Yeah.
And
The churches.
PTAs and churches, right? Different groups that could help pass these garbage can decals out.
Well, can we maybe start getting some pricing on some of these things?
Yes, yeah, that was my next step is
Okay,
with
great.
these, because now we need to go larger. So a lot of the local printing companies can only do 8.5 by 11, and now we're looking at 11 by 17 because we have a larger canvas on the garbage cans to work with.
Mhm.
And so I'll need to get some pricing and start looking around for that. But
And I think tonight, if we could get some clarity on kind of some of the things that you like or don't like, which we've heard from Gary, but and we need to get pricing for sure. We've talked for several meetings about this garbage can idea. I know it's not the only idea; it's just one of many. But if we do the garbage can idea, I agree with Denise in that we want to make sure we get a sticker that's going to last. And what we've heard from B&B Leasing is, when they take the garbage cans into the shop, that doesn't happen often, but when it does, they pretty much pressure wash that sticker off there, and that would be okay. I mean, I think you want them to look good at as well as have a message there. So, I think having enough of them and getting them available for a distribution, John, because you're right, that's kind of a challenge. Does every family get 3? They're
Well, I think focusing on one area, that's why I'm suggesting a pilot project, because I think you want an intensive presence of these kinds of signs, even if it's only out there for a day and a half or on pickup. Then the people who are driving those and living in the neighborhoods, they'll be reminded as well. It's not just the through traffic.
I like that idea too.
And then we can evaluate, has it had an impact in that neighborhood?
Also as a thought, you have these as PDFs. Why not send these out to the neighborhood groups as a PDF and have them evaluate which ones they like as, potential for their area? Because it would be helpful to have some outside opinions besides us, as to, if they're any good or not. And PDFs are cheap.
Well, my thought is so back to how soon can we get it? We need to get it. People want to get it. Bob wants to get it right away. So my thought is the CIC are they a large enough represented group? And maybe we take it to the CIC. Bob, maybe you're on the CIC, or you were.
I was. I resigned.
But we could. Either you or somebody else could take it to the CIC, and they could, if we were under the impression that the Traffic Advisory Board would give us the guidance that we needed, but if we want to take that to a wider audience, that might help. The idea of trying to float it out to the wider community via email with some kind of polling, that can happen. It's just time consuming and.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion. I move that the safe driver, no accident be our first priority, and that we evaluate that as to cost and to availability, and move on and get off the horse, or
as the decal.
or kick the horse or whatever.
As the garbage can decal.
Yes,
Okay.
and make the others available as PDFs for people can print out or whatever if they access the website.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
So should we make a decision about doing a pilot area? It seems to me that would be useful, and since McLaughlin's been working so hard on this, I'd actually recommend we start with them, and they've talked about collaboration, helping us figure out how to get them distributed in some kind of effective way. So if somebody wants to change it, they can, but I'll make a trial motion here. I move that we do the trash can as a pilot in the McLaughlin neighborhood first.
I'll second it.
If you don't agree, that's fine. I'm just trying to get it going.
Sounds like the motion's been made and seconded.
Lisa and I are just talking. I don't want to get in the middle of that at all, but one of the reasons we went with the garbage, I'm guessing all of the McLaughlin neighborhood has the same garbage pickup day. So,
Thursday.
And my guess is people are going to latch onto this idea pretty quickly. So I don't know what kind of time frame you're thinking of, but I guess we were just trying to figure out how. I think the original intent was there would be multiple days that people would see this in a different neighborhood. And by the way, it's not
Right,
just
but I'm just saying, instead of trying to cover
all
5% of the whole city, let's cover 70% of one neighborhood initially and see if it has an impact. Otherwise,
I
it's
want
going to
one
be
of those
so
stickers.
sparse it won't be effective.
Yeah, and McLaughlin has the most traffic volume too, don't they?
They're the largest neighborhood and they've been here the most.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have the most traffic. I know. We just looked at a work order screen, and the McLaughlin neighborhood gets the most public works visits of any neighborhood. But the other thing we could focus on, John, because I think the other idea would be to focus on properties adjacent to, say, a collector street, particular type of street, and rather than citywide.
So again, just starting with one neighborhood doesn't preclude doing the other things as a step 2, 3, and 4. Just think of this as step 1, get it out there. See, 'cause we might learn some things about how it works and how it doesn't work. And then when we go to step 2, we could modify it, so
Okay.
it'd be more
Well,
effective.
I suggest you part of the start is you apply it to Center Street. That'd be one of the, that is in the McLaughlin neighborhood.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, I
Fifth
think
Street,
that the
Ninth Street,
Collector
Seventh
Street's
Street.
idea is correct. You know, they got Center and Washington and 7th and
Fifth.
5th. And then I would like to ask the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association to help us in the evaluation during your meetings. You could bring that up as an agenda item and help us evaluate how it's doing. Yeah. So we have a motion and a second to use the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association as a test area. Anybody have any more conversation about that? Oh, I'm sorry, Luis, I'll let you speak before we vote.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so excited to hear all these different ideas. I can't tell you. I came here complaining without any remedies, and now everybody's getting these ideas going, so that's exciting. I will volunteer and be helpful in any way I can, and I'm sure there are several other people in the McLaughlin neighborhood that would be willing.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Okay, so everybody in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes. So
So,
we'll have to get the pricing on those signs and somehow figure out how many to order to begin with for that neighborhood.
Bob, on a citywide basis, and it would seem to be very simple to inaugurate, would be that banner that John suggested. If we get 2 or 3 banners, across well-traveled streets.
Denise.
I have a big problem though with funding.
Well, I was going to suggest we find out how much it would cost.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can find out how much a banner will cost.
okay.
I think that's a good idea. I really do.
Yeah, that'd be pretty neat, really.
Might have to have a cake sale, but hey.
Similar message, right? One of these themes, but
Safe driving is no accident. I like that.
We'll take it out of his
Salary?
Yeah.
so, Chair, Lisa has put together a brochure, and I wanted her to talk a little about it. Same topic. I'm guessing similar information. What's on the website?
Right,
Okay.
yeah. I just decided to take it upon myself to create a brochure for the campaign. So if people want more information, it has our mission statement, the same statement that's on the website, as well as the logo that Officer Willard has created for us. And then I started doing some searching online and found a few infographics and facts that go along with speeding and distracted driving to help people kind of jar them and really make them understand how unsafe some of these, driving tactics that they use are, such as the distracted driving. I found a fact here that says that if you are driving at 55 miles an hour and you look down and you're distracted for 5 seconds, you can go the length of a football field. So that's how fast an accident can occur. But I thought using some of these facts in a brochure for them might help them understand just how unsafe the distracted driving and speeding are. And then on the back, I provided local resources and some additional resources and national resources that they can check out online so they can do some research on their own as well. So I just thought, since we've been in kind of a lull in between our internal meetings for the campaign, that I would take some time and try to push forward a little bit on my own. So
I want to be sure, John, that I didn't tell her to do that. I told her I'm not her boss.
I didn't either. I think she did it on her own. We have a lot of folks in our organization that have initiative, and
Yeah,
Lisa's
dedicated.
one of them. Yeah.
Well, now, how would you distribute that?
well, I don't know if we wanted to have them available when people were, getting the stickers so they could learn more about the campaign, because it's nice to be handed a sticker and, hey, put it on your garbage can, but not to really know much about the campaign itself. So
I think they would
thought-
go well together,
Right.
and you could put it in your quarterly city newsletter, just like that, stick it in there.
Yeah. I was
There's
thinking
a
of
number of places it could be
and
distributed.
attaching it on the website. I see it a lot of times other cities with their safety campaigns, they'll attach the brochure itself. So if people want to print them off and start distributing them, they can as well, and kind of helping the campaign grow. So
And presentations to the CIC and the PTAs and the service groups.
right.
Lisa,
have something to
do you have
give them.
copies of that you can
I
circulate?
have just this one here because I was then asked to turn it into a trifold, and I was unable to complete the trifold. I can actually pull up what I have so far.
Well, how about this? How about
Pass
we?
that around.
How about we just distribute
some,
it at the December meeting?
Sure.
Because, the one thing that I would resist just a little bit is we could have the best product in the world. If we don't have kind of the foundation upon how we're going to deal with things like distribution, a schedule for how we're going to move forward with this, a particular plan as to what events we're going to hit and how we're going to deal with, I just feel like we need to take our time with that too. I know we want to do it before the next school year, but I want you to also think about making sure we have consensus on how we move forward with this. Otherwise, I think you won't know, and then you'll feel slated, and I don't want to go there. I think we've got a really good thing going here with this, and it's been several months in the making just to get to this point, and I think for good reason, trying to be cautious and not overshoot a target that, I just want to be cautious about that because,
Well, we have the endorsement of the city commission. Are they behind us?
not yet. Not yet.
I think without it, I think we're just going around circles. We got to some way formalize this and let the public know that this is a program, not just a suggestion. Really, because otherwise it's just going to spin us wheels. No pun intended.
So again, I feel like before we float it to the public, or before we even take it to the CIC, let alone the city commission, this group, this is the group who initiated this. Bob's put a lot of energy into this, and you guys have all kind of led us to even this point. And so again, you're right. Before we get it out there, we probably ought to make sure we're going to spend city funds on it. We might want to get city commission, even though I'm expecting it to be within my signing authority. I'd much prefer that we had blessing from the city commission to do that. So, yeah.
Well, if we can get the pricing on these stickers and pricing on the brochures, I think we have enough ammunition now to go before the city commission and ask for their blessing to spend city funds.
If I might, if you characterize it as a phased project, so it's a comprehensive project over a number of years, and you're phasing elements of it, and you'll be able to evaluate elements to see whether they warrant being repeated in other neighborhoods or in other ways, then I think you could accomplish what John wants to do, have a generalized map, and you're starting with more concrete stuff on step 1, and you'll be developing things step 2 and 3, and have city council look at step 1 and give their blessing to that, and then we'll be working on step 2 and 3 as we go along.
And isn't overall public safety one of the priorities of the city commission?
Wish I knew those by heart, but I'm trying to remember what their goals are.
Enhance the livability of
Livability of the community, that probably falls in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Goal 3. What
And
about
seeking
if we-
opportunities to maintain communications with
yeah, 3
citizens
and
and
4 work
facilitate
together.
citizen participation. That's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yep, it is.
Well, how about if we start our little mini meetings that we had? This is the holiday season, of course, and everybody's so busy. I don't see it happening until January. But if we could have our little meetings, get some ideas to bring back to the TAC for their consideration and approval, if we could have just a short little agenda item at each TAC meeting, we can start getting the ball rolling in an organized manner.
Yeah. So we'll bring you a schedule. We'll put a draft schedule together in your packet, the brochure, and get the pricing for the stickers, and try to have that by December.
It seems to me what you're discussing here is the design of a program that's going to be presented to the commission so that they give the blessing to this and give the authority to it, because it's got to have some authority behind it. And, and after the first, it would seem to be appropriate that we have time to put together our program and design it.
Then distracted pedestrians looks like it might be the next one. Given
Yeah,
what,
because, I had somebody tell me this once when I just about ran over a person because of their carelessness. And she apologized to me and told me that we pedestrians have certain responsibilities also. I thought that was a pretty good response.
there's
Does anybody have any more discussion about this item? Okay. Did you have anything more, Lisa, to tell us about? Okay,
I'm not going to show that video.
I think we're at the TAC schedule now. Is that where we are?
Yeah, that's just an informational item to let you guys know what the schedule for 2016 looks like.
Okay, and future agenda items. We have, tell us about those, Lisa.
December will be the finance presentation on the traffic or transportation budget that was requested by Henry. And then in January, Martin has been setting up a county presentation on signalization in the city. So those were the two we have upcoming, and I know it was brought to my attention that in future agenda items that I start listing out what we want or what you guys request for future agenda items so we don't lose track of them and keep that ball rolling.
I have a thought that for a unscheduled future item in the next year or so, which would be to consider keeping Jefferson one way from 7th to 6th as it is now during this construction for the library. It seems to be working better, even with the construction equipment there, than it did as a two-way prior to that. And so, it's one I use a lot, and I get a notice of it, but it seems to be working better as a one-way from 7th to 6th.
Okay, does anybody else have anything?